Hi everyone, Paul from Litebox Architecture. So today I wanted to talk to you about a structural engineer. Who are they and what do they do? Well, we tend to use a structural engineer pretty much on most jobs. This is because generally when clients are looking to knock out structural openings or supporting walls, we generally need the structural engineer to be able to calculate the loadings and the sizes of the steel beams and frames that need to support these. We may also need the structural engineer to provide some details on a structural foundation, such as a non-traditional foundation, so a raft foundation or a pile design. So what's the difference between a structural engineer and what we do? Well, the structural engineer is looking at all aspects of the structure and how your building is going to go together to make sure it's structurally sound. This will include steel beams, foundations, roof timbers, anything along these lines. Whereas from our point of view, we're looking at the whole design and concept of the building as to how the building's going to flow, how natural daylight will enter the space, and generally how your extension or renovation is going to look when the project's finished. So, do you need a structural engineer? Well, yes, you do need a structural engineer if for anything that's non-standard construction, or potentially if you're knocking out any load-bearing walls, then you will need a structural engineer involved in your project to help you through this process. This is something normally that we can liaise on your behalf with our structural engineer. So we have a structural engineer that we have used for many years, and he's really good and very competitive, and we work really well with him. His name's Jason at Structural Calculations, and I'll put in the details for Jason in the link below so that if you needed to contact a structural engineer or you are looking for a structural engineer, you've got his contact details there ready to speak to him. Now, who instructs the structural engineer? Well, this can come either directly from ourselves, as we refer it to our engineer to provide the calculations on your behalf, and we'll liaise with the structural engineer to get the information that we need. Or alternatively, you can instruct the structural engineer yourselves and liaise with them yourself. So this really depends on how involved you want to be with your project. Generally, I would like to say that we would prefer clients to come through us for us to instruct the structural engineer. Then if there's any technical queries, we're able to answer them and deal with them efficiently on your behalf. Now, I'm guessing that one of the questions through this video is going to be, well, what's a load-bearing wall? Or is this some kind of term that the structural engineer uses, or some kind of term that is a technical term for something? Well, in layman terms, a load-bearing wall is anything that has load above it. So for instance, if you were to knock out the back wall of your house in order to move into your extension, then potentially you will have what we would class as a load-bearing wall. That means that the wall above is taking the load from the roof, the wall, and all of its own weight that will normally run down the rest of the wall at the ground level onto the foundation. So at the minute that we knock out that wall and open the space up to go through, so it opens the space through into your extension, we then need to provide a supporting beam above that opening to be able to support the wall above. This means then that the loading then transfers from the roof down the wall, and then the load is spread along the beam both directions and down to the remaining walls at the sides and down to the foundations. Now, I don't want to get in too technical into the structural engineer's job and role because that's not for me. And hopefully we'll get our structural engineer on one of our next videos that can explain a little bit more detail about what he does. Now, I'm sure for the structural engineers, structural engineering is really exciting, but for me, I find it a little bit. Now, how long does a structural engineer take? Well, this depends on how big the project is. So for a small project, generally the structural engineer will work on around a 1 to 2 week turnaround. But obviously if the project is really large, then this can take up to 2 to 4 weeks. This is the general timescales. I know our engineer at the moment normally works on 1 to 2 week turnaround, so it's pretty efficient. Now the burning question is, how much does the structural engineer cost? On average, I would say somewhere between 100 to 150 pounds per beam, depending on the engineer and the size of the engineer and where they're located in the country. So this is just an average. Now, generally the cost will be based on the complexity of your project. So a simple project with, for instance, one load-bearing wall to demolish and install a steel beam will be relatively cheap compared to a renovation project where there's numerous beams and it's a steel design for the whole project. Now, further complications can be added that we require the structural engineer if we have problems with the ground conditions. Now this could be bad ground, poor ground, made up ground, that the structural engineer then may need to design a engineered foundation such as a raft foundation, a ground bearing slab, or even piled foundations. So obviously there would be potentially a separate cost for this. And again, this would be priced generally per project. So I'm hoping that this video has been of some help to you to understand who the structural engineer is and what they do and generally how much they cost. So if you're liking our content and you're finding this really useful, then please hit the subscribe button and subscribe to our channel to keep updated on our latest videos. And if you've got a project in mind or you're thinking of renovating your home, then please get in touch either via our website on our online booking system for a free consultation at www.liteboxarchitecture.co.uk. You can call us on 024 76 629 192 or email us on info@liteboxarchitecture.co.uk. Thanks for watching and don't forget, hit that subscribe button.